Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the deep end of human nature to deconstruct the fascinating, highly calculated, and honestly, often hidden psychological forces that shape human influence. Because, true influence isn't about physical force or overt demands, it's really about the invisible architecture of persuasion. Okay, get this. There's this absolutely brilliant quote from the 17th century that perfectly captures the core philosophy of our source material today. Much more genius is needed to make love than to command armies. Think about that for a second. This profound observation completely shifts our perception of power, pulling it away from brute force and planting it firmly in the realm of psychology. So, in this explainer, we're neutrally unpacking the, quite frankly, immoral and timeless strategies outlined in Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction. We're treating this text as an objective analysis of human nature. Whether you choose to apply these tactics in your own life, or maybe you just learn to spot them when others use them on you, understanding this framework is absolutely crucial. Section 1. Seduction as Ultimate Power, Psychological Warfare. Let's take a look at a massive, foundational shift in history. For literally millennia, right, power was all about brute force and physical violence. But historically, women like Cleopatra had zero physical or political power in a world totally dominated by men. So what did they do? They invented psychological tactics to survive and conquer. Over the centuries, this incredible method was adopted by 17th century male courtiers like Casanova, 19th century political orators like Napoleon, and finally modern charismatic leaders like JFK. What started out as a desperate survival mechanism became the ultimate blueprint for social and political dominance. Section 2. The seducer's mindset. No magic, just strategy. Because to truly grasp how this all works, we first have to understand the calculated mindset required to play the game. The word seduction actually comes from Latin, meaning to lead astray. The text argues that it's essentially the act of inducing psychological surrender by using pleasure as bait. You play on emotions, you stir up desire, and yes, even confusion. Seduction isn't just about romance. It's a highly strategic process of penetrating the target's mind and lowering their resistance so much that they happily and willingly hand over control. So how do you actually put this mindset into action? Well, the text outlines a warrior's outlook. First, you have to view life as theater, fluidly adapting to different roles. Second, you become a provider of pleasure in a world that's usually weighed down by boring responsibilities. Third, you enter the target's spirit by adopting their rules and moods. And finally, and perhaps most controversially, you must ignore all moral judgments. The author frames this as a completely amoral game. You're basically discarding your own insecurities just to provide this intoxicating pleasure to your target. Section 3. The seductive character. Finding your archetype. Okay, if that's the mindset, how do you actually become the person who wields this influence? The author argues something pretty cool here. We all have the latent power of attraction. It's not some mystical trait reserved for a lucky few. We literally just need to identify and develop which of the 9 seductive archetypes outlined in the text fits us best. It's all about taking a natural tendency you already possess and cranking the dial all the way up. Section 4. Archetype, the siren, the ultimate fantasy. Let's ground this abstract philosophy by deep diving into 2 specific, iconic character archetypes from the text. We're starting with one of the most ancient and potent, the siren. The siren represents the ultimate male fantasy. In a world where men are constantly expected to be rational, responsible, and perfectly in control, the siren offers this supreme, dangerous release. She transports her target into a realm of pure, unadulterated pleasure. She's like a mirage, luring targets in by cultivating a highly charged, slightly elusive presence. What's absolutely fascinating is comparing 2 wildly different historical examples of this archetype. On one side, we have the spectacular siren. Think Cleopatra, theatrical, goddess-like, relying on regal danger and constant transformation. On the flip side, we have the sex siren, embodied by Marilyn Monroe. She projected extreme vulnerability, innocence, and this little girl craving for protection. Both are completely effective sirens, but their methods for bypassing the rational mind are night and day. Let's zoom in on Cleopatra for a second. The text points out something crazy. She wasn't even considered classically beautiful. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't about looks at all. She enchanted powerful men like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony through sheer high drama. Take that famous incident where she literally had herself smuggled into an Egyptian palace, past armed guards, inside a rolled-up carpet, just to be unfurled at Caesar's feet. No way could anyone ignore that. She used daring, unpredictability, visual spectacles, and an intoxicating voice to completely overwhelm his senses. Conversely, look at Marilyn Monroe. It wasn't about regal intimidation for her. It was a deeply calculated vulnerability. Marilyn spent years, literally years, constructing her breathy voice and that famous walk to project an irresistible, totally unthreatening mix of schoolgirl innocence and raw desire. One director actually called it Mae West, Theda Bara, and Bo Peep all rolled into one. Her apparent need for affection made men feel like strong protectors, entirely hiding the fact that she was the one pulling all the strings.
So if you're embodying the siren, the text breaks down 3 specific physical tools you use to bypass someone's rational mind. Step 1 is the voice. It has to be calm, unhurried, and insinuating. Step 2 is body and adornment, using clothes not just to cover up, but to create a dazzling goddess effect with very selective disclosure of skin. And step 3 is movement, graceful, languorous, and just slightly ambiguous.
Section 5, Archetype, the rake, the female fantasy. Now let's completely flip the dynamic and examine a profoundly powerful female fantasy figure. If the siren is the ultimate male fantasy, the rake is her counterpart. The text defines the rake as an unrestrained, amoral slave to his love of women. He appeals directly to repressed longings by offering exactly what the cautious, everyday guy doesn't. The rake is delightfully unrestrained. When he desires someone, even if it's just for a brief, fleeting moment, he will go to the absolute ends of the earth for them, providing this massive thrill of danger and total devotion. So what makes the rake so dangerously successful? First, he's an absolute master of seductive language, using soft words because he knows they are a massive vulnerability. Second, his desire is infectious and completely insatiable. Third, he is thrillingly disloyal. And fourth, he possesses a notoriously bad reputation. Because so many have succumbed to him before, it creates this magnetic aura of desirability. His very danger and dishonesty are the exact things that create the intense thrill for his targets.
To put this into historical perspective, the text illustrates this dynamic with the 18th century Duc de Richelieu. This guy arrived at the court of Louis XIV at just 15 years old, and he made such bold, impudent advances on the court ladies that the king actually threw him in the Bastille prison to teach him a lesson. Yet, according to the text, the danger and novelty he presented were so refreshing that the women of the court literally begged the king for his release. They simply couldn't stand his absence.
Section 6, The Power is Yours, a psychological playbook. As we start to wrap up this explainer, let's connect all these grand historical deconstructions directly back to you. Because this isn't just ancient history, it's a psychological playbook. If you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer, remember this. Seduction is a psychological game. It is not just a measure of physical beauty. Attraction is not some mystical gift you're either born with or lack forever. It's a highly calculated psychological art that absolutely anyone can cultivate if they shift their mindset and understand human emotional needs. So after exploring the undeniable historical power of the siren and the rake, and seeing exactly how they leverage psychology over pure physical force, we have to ask a final question. Which seductive archetype is hiding in your character? Take a moment, look inward, find that latent power, and think about how you might already be playing the game, or, how you might start. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes open to those invisible forces all around you.